talk about the ultimate edition, the next evolution, as you put it, of white flight. That evil thing where white people say, actually, I don't want to live in a crime-ridden hellhole. Terrible, terrible, I know. But before I get into that, I'd like to announce to everybody on YouTube that we are currently looking for people with skills in videography, audio, and editing who are available to work in the London or Swindon area. If you're interested in full job specifications for our new career opportunity as production manager, you can find that at lotuseaters.com/careers or lotuseaters.com/career-production-manager. And it's all on there, and you can send us a job application if you are interested. Thank you very much. Let's get on with this. So we know that there's a paradox. Everything is paradoxical these days. Everything is completely upside down. The left have gone loony, as always. Somebody's lost their marbles, and I'm sure that it's not me, as we know that there are always contradicting ideas that we have to hold in our heads at all times, in all places. But it all centers around one unifying theory, that being, I hate whitey. This is the unifying ideology of our days. And we know this because you see these two contradicting ideas held at the same time, which is gentrification is bad, white flight is bad. And both are signifiers of some kind of anti-black or anti-POC racism. And to get an example of this, I just found this study that was done by Zawadi Rux Ahidiana called Theorizing Gentrification as a Process of Racial Capitalism. Now, this, I say study, this is an essay where it basically just says, if white people move into a low-class ethnic neighborhood and make it nicer, this is racism. This is racism and it's capitalism. We know that capitalism is evil in the first place. And at the same time, you have to hold that idea in your head while you also have to hold this idea that white flight is bad as well. So white people move in, bad. White people move out, also bad.
I love the argument implicit in the gentrification argument, because it's basically like wherever white people go, they make things nicer.
Oh, they bring civilization. It's terrible.
It is amusing. It's like wherever the beaver goes, he has to build a dam. Wherever the white man goes, he has to build a functioning society. This is the what's implicit in these, of course. So, I mean, in this is actually quite an interesting article, even though the title is saying white flight might still enforce segregation. Now, this is from 2021, and they point out here, this is part of the APA, white Americans perceived a threat to their culture and way of life when presented with information about changing demographics in hypothetical white majority neighborhoods and schools, compared with when no demographic change was projected. Now, that seems to me to be an obvious result from that question, because yes, if all of a sudden people with a foreign culture, different ways of life move in, obviously you're going to have more of a threat to the culture and way of life in that local area than if nobody was moving in at all. And that's not even necessarily something that you can divide along racial lines, that you have to at least. You can also say, well, literally anybody moving in and out of a place will change to a certain extent the character, if only in minute or larger ways, depending on how different these people are. And they pointed out here, even, and this is quite interesting and ties into something that we were speaking last time about how the left tends to speak out of both sides of its mouth at the same time and be duplicitous and dishonest in how they communicate. Even liberal white parents have resisted sending their children to integrated schools in New York City and other areas. Because, of course, it's but basically the left operates in a segregation for me, integration for the mindset. This is why you end up with parts of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but as far as I'm aware, the demographics of parts of America like the New England in the Northeast is still very majority white.
Yeah.
And that's where people tend to be most liberal outside of the coastal parts of the West Coast.
Yeah. And you'll find that the segregation is astonishing in some left-leaning cities where they're all left-leaning. But I grew up in Baltimore, and a friend of mine, very wealthy family, they live in essentially a gated community that is right in the center of Baltimore, but it's all pretty much white people. These are multi-million-dollar houses. 3 blocks away, there's shootings every day, and it's a complete, but there is no connection between those two people. Yeah, they live next to each other, but they are completely segregated.
Yeah, it's interesting that these things tend to operate as a form of luxury beliefs.
Right.
The ultra left-wing liberal ideas operate as a way that you can signal your own virtuous nature. You can have a sort of function of social signaling. And also, again, to tie into the previous segment, if you're really left-wing, it's a way of harming other people as well. If you know that integration in particular communities, integration of particular communities will end up in one way or another harming people that you don't like, then you're going to encourage that as long as the second order effects don't end up at your doorstep. So that's what we find in things like this. And I'll carry on here saying that since 2000, the population growth of, because this is all about the demographic change of America, population of growth of Latino Americans has accounted for more than half of the population growth in the United States. According to the US Census projections, the United States will be a majority-minority nation by 2044, where non-Hispanic whites will make up just under 50% of the population, compared with approximately 25% for Hispanics, 13% for blacks. I find it amazing that the percentage of blacks seems to just be constant in America.
Could have something to do with abortion. I don't know.
That's possibly something to do with it. 8% for Asians and 4% for multiracial people. Non-Hispanic whites currently make up approximately 58% of the US population. Again, this is APA. Just saying it out loud. Yeah, demographic change is happening. White replacement is happening. We're bringing in all of the Mexicans. And yes, if you live below the southern border of America, it doesn't matter which country you're from, you're Mexican. So, sorry to break it to you all there. But remember, it's just a conspiracy theory.
Right. Until it's not. Until then, it's a good thing. What's the old phrase? It's not happening unless we want it to happen, and then it is happening, and it's good. So...
Yes, and of course, changing demographics will bring changing cultures, changing way of lives. And with this, I'd like to bring us all to a nice city profile that I have prepared of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the capital city of the U.S. state of Louisiana, which is located on the eastern bank of the Mississippi River and had a population of 227,470 as of 2020.
So... you were in my contemplations understanding America, weren't you? And the state of Louisiana won out on some rather embarrassing titles.
Unflattering, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The people were too law-abiding, far too healthy, not a bit of obesity there at all. No, it was the very, very unflattering metrics that it won out on, sadly. And I'll go through a little bit of information. So it's got a strong economy. It's helped the city to be ranked as one of the top 10 places for young adults in 2010 by Portfolio.com, and one of the top 20 cities in North America for economic strength by the Brookings Institution in 2009. It was ranked by CNN as the 9th best place in the country to start a new business. Now, I noticed that these, about 15 years ago, these metrics that we're reading from here, so I don't know if it's still the same. So they have Amazon in 2021, the distribution center. Chicago Bridge and Iron Company had an office in Baton Rouge, but it was sold in 2017, so not anymore. Oh, exciting news, though. In 2023, they got an Aldi.
Wow.
Moving up.
The highest of high culture.
Are they moving to America now? They're taking over the world. Have you noticed, actually, if you scroll back up again?
Oh, yes.
Their state capitol building is an actual castle. I'm sorry, credit where credit's due.
Yeah, no,
that is a good
absolutely. The thing is with these old cities in America that have been there for years, a lot of the older architecture is still quite nice because it was when the people who moved there were either trying to emulate the countries that they were from or just emulate styles that they really appreciated, in the same way that the founding fathers appreciated the old Roman Republic style, which is why you get all the lovely old column buildings in Washington.
Neoclassical stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I really like some of the architecture in parts of America. But if we go down to a very important bit here, we can see again the demographic change that has been happening in Baton Rouge. So from 2000 to 2020, the white population went from 44 to 34%, and the black population went from 49 to 53%, and Mexicans, Hispanics, but Mexicans, are the ones who are growing the most. They went from 1.72% to almost 6% in those 20 years, because obviously it's all coming up through the southern border, so they're spreading out across the southern states first. And you can see here that they have this handy map, which shows, again, as we were talking about, there is pretty much segregation in the city. So the green spots of this map here, if I click on it, here we go, are the black populations, and the blue spots are the white population. So that you can see there's just a definitive cutoff line right in the center here.
That's all well and good, but now let's see a crime map.
Well,
I
actually,
wonder- oh,
actually, just give me a moment. First of all, you're kind of jumping ahead here.
sorry,
a bit, Josh.
Harry.
No, I appreciate it. What it means is that you can predict things using pattern recognition. But I will read out some of the crime bits that they have on the Wikipedia page here if I scroll down a bit. So, since the 21st century, Baton Rouge has had one of the worst crime rates in the nation. Baton Rouge has approximately 54 crimes per 1,000 residents, which is higher than the national average of 23. I mean, that's almost double. That's over double. And the Louisiana average of 34. In 2021, Baton Rouge set a homicide record.
Congratulations.
Whoa, break out the party poppers, boys. Get me a 40 ounce from the store. We partying hard tonight with 149 homicides. In 2022, Forbes ranked it the 8th most dangerous city in the US. For the first time in Baton Rouge's history, the homicide count has reached at least 100 for 4 consecutive years, 2020 to 2023. Historically, it's not known for much gang activity, but since the 2020s, it has been growing and becoming a major concern. And it leads to websites like this, Deep Sentinel, asking, is it safe? And this is for anybody who's going to be moving there if you're thinking of maybe starting a business on the basis of a CNN article from 15 years ago. And they talk about this, they give the same figures in here, but as part of this, they also break down the types of crime. And you can see most of it is property crime. So you're very likely to be broken into. And they give this little map here of the safest neighborhoods of Baton
Hang on a
Rouge.
minute, they're all very southerly. And if I
Hang on a
remember rightly,
moment.
I don't recognise any pattern here. There's no correlation. This is all
coincidental.
It is, yeah.
It's all coincidental. All cultural factors. And they also list a few of the most diverse neighborhoods. Now, if I go up here, back to the safest ones, there is no overlap. There is no overlap whatsoever. But what they also point out here is that they've taken polls of people who live there, how safe that they feel. And it just says Baton Rouge residents don't necessarily feel safe. More than 80% of poll respondents on Area Vibes rated crime in the city as awful or poor, and a full 60% of respondents said they never walk alone at night. As is often the case, the safer neighborhoods tend to be further from Baton Rouge's downtown area, as you can see from that little map. It's also been the site of a lot of trouble over the years since the Black Lives Matter protests started to go on. So in 2016, they had a lot of these protests going on that captured this legendary photo. And you can tell that it's legendary, lived on, iconic Slay Queen, because nobody past the week this photo was taken can remember this photo.
I've never seen it
No,
before.
nor have I.
Well, everybody wants to be the Rosa Parks photo.
Right, yes.
Everybody wants to recreate their 1960s civil rights
They
fantasy.
want to be putting flowers
The
in
flower
there.
and the
Yeah.
gun, yeah.
Yeah, they want to be doing that, which were all staged photo shoots anyway. But they don't, because the news cycle doesn't care about you. I mean, look at some of this. Look at her posture. She's balanced, powerful, upright, well grounded, with both feet firmly planted. Yeah, she's standing up straight.
It's nice that our state media is using Facebook post sources as well.
But Facebook comments underneath a Sean King post.
Excellent.
Credible source if ever I've seen one. But I'll read some of what happened back in 2016. So there was a demonstration organized by Black Lives Matter, took place days after the police killed Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge. I looked into the case. It was a black man who was trying to sell CDs out of a shop, waved a gun around at some guy, got the police called on him. Then when the police arrived, they tried to restrain him, and while he was on the ground, he tried to reach for a loaded .38 caliber in his pocket, so they shot him before they could get shot themselves. And of course, Black Lives Matter decided this was a travesty. He didn't do nothing. He was a good boy. He was turning his life around, etc., etc. Ignore that he'd already been to prison on violent charges in the past. A video.
Many such cases.
How the BBC presents it is a video showed 2 white police officers holding him down and shooting him. No context. They just saw a black
just
man.
executed him on the floor.
Yeah, they just held him down, said, you know what, boys, I feel like killing some tonight.
They also
I mean,
said
come
this
on.
was MAGA country. And
Oh, of course.
they
Yeah.
had a
Word
Trump
bleach on it,
flag
yeah.
behind. Maybe they had a Confederate flag as well.
Oh,
somewhere.
for sure.
Probably. I think one of them was a direct descendant of Robert E. Lee, perhaps even. Police said they received a report an armed man was making threats. I love just how much context they always leave out of these things. In an atmosphere of heightened racial tension and amid growing debate over the seeming militarization of the American police, one photo stood out, and they go over this photo, taken by Jonathan Bachman, and he said, I feel it's representative of the peaceful demonstrations that have taken place here. People are very angry and have gone through a tremendous amount of pain, but they have not turned to violence, except even in the BBC, they kind of have to admit the protests weren't exactly peaceful. Louisiana's The Advocate newspaper said that 102 people were arrested with 8 guns seized. One police officer lost several teeth after being hit by a projectile. So peaceful, fiery, but mostly peaceful, and homicidal, but mostly peaceful as well, because this is something that I actually read about in Andy No's book, and when he was talking about anti-fascism and Antifa, and this was a case that he highlighted in that. But I thought I'd go over it here because once again, this is in the immediate weeks following the Alton Sterling murders, and this happened in Baton Rouge. This is the Gavin Eugene Long shootings. Now, he didn't even live in Baton Rouge, but he traveled about 700 miles after the BLM protests so that he could go and commit these shootings. And it was on July 17th, 2016. He shot 6 police officers in Baton Rouge in an ambush attack in the wake of the shooting of Alton Sterling. 4 died, including one who was critically wounded and died from complications in 2022. So this is all on your doorstep. You've got lots of property crimes going on. You've got record homicides in your city. You've got constant civil unrest and civil disorder going on. People are protesting. People are protesting the police. People are going out and murdering the police. You're not feeling all right to go out at night. You're not safe even in the daytime. What would you do in this bustling utopia?
There's one thing I can't say on the internet because I'll be there forever. But the other thing I might do is move.
Yep, leave.
Well, what if I told you you didn't actually have to move? You instead just declare the south side of the city a new city that has nothing to do with the northern side of the city.
They're going to build a wall and make the those people pay for it.
Well, I don't think they'll have much money to pay for it, but they are certainly going to declare themselves separate, and this will annoy people who think that peaceful, law-abiding, high-trust citizens should be forced to share public services and fund through their own taxes going towards affirmative action and benefits and such, the criminal activity of those of the underclasses. So what's happened here is they point out in this, they title it, Wealthy White Louisiana Residents Win the Right to Form Their Own City and Split from Poorer Black Neighborhoods in Landmark Court Ruling After a 10-Year Battle. Wealthy white Baton Rouge residents have won a decade-long court battle to split from poorer neighborhoods and form their own city with plans for better schools and less crime. Louisiana Supreme Court ruled on Friday that the new city of St. George, I like that name, could move forward with incorporation splitting from the rest of Baton Rouge. St. George will have 86,000 residents across a 60-square-mile area in the southeast of East Baton Rouge Parish and have its own mayor and city council.
Will its flag be white with a red cross in the middle?
Perhaps. We'll have to see, won't we?
It's going to be an English enclave.
Perhaps.
It's our patron saint. So
supporters of the new city say that the existing city parish government is poorly run with high crime rates and bad schools. I see no inaccuracy there. Opponents say the move is racist and will create a white enclave as it separates a wealthy area of the city from the black majority city and school districts. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to say it in so bluntly. Yeah, that's basically the point. These are the people who are earning the wealth in the city. These are the people who are creating a more high trust, low crime rate society in the south side of the city. So if all of their taxes are going to fueling those people committing the crimes and fueling the public services which are probably corrupt, poorly run, not functional, then yes, absolutely, I think they should have 100% of the right to say, we don't want to be part of this anymore. We want to separate ourselves and form an actually functioning city.
This is what happened in South Africa, isn't it?
Yep. What's that town called? Onania or something like that?
I think
Yeah.
Iranian.
Irania, something like that.
It
Where the
looks
Channel
lovely,
4
though, yeah.
sent a disabled black guy to come and go, "Why are you racist, though?"
Right. Yeah.
And complain on camera about how uncomfortable he felt there,
Mhm.
while just a load of white South African families were having barbecues and picnics, not being worried about being murdered for their skin color. He was there going, "Oh, I just feel so uncomfortable here."
I saw an article recently about there was a transformer, obviously an electrical transformer, installed. I think it was in South Africa, and the colonized peoples of Africa decided to destroy it, disabling their electricity, to use the liquid in it for cooking oil.
Excellent.
Amazing.
This
Good
is what these South Africans have to live with.
Oh.
Listen, if you don't want every single country, every single city, every single town, every single neighborhood to turn into Johannesburg or Haiti, then you're a racist and you're evil. That's
Well, it's only a problem if it's white people doing it, right? That's the only time it's an issue. If any other group decides that, no, we want to have our enclave, we need our space, that's fine. But when white people do it, then it's racist.
Well, the UK government actually funded a black-only university. It was kind of forgotten, and I'm not sure whether it ran into any roadblocks. But I think we're supposedly completely fine with it, at least if I'm talking about the regime's perspective in the West.
It's common in the United States. They have historically black colleges. I mean, they do accept white people, but for the most part, it's majority African Americans who attend them.
The funny thing is, I mentioned Thomas Sowell earlier. He complains that it was the busing programs that emerged after Brown v. Board of Education that destroyed the quality of a lot of those historically black colleges. I think Dunbar School is the example that he always goes back to, as it was producing the most black PhD graduates. In the US, it was the place where lots of doctors and lawyers went to school. And then because of the busing programs and the forced integration after Brown, the school went to complete S and doesn't function properly anymore. Now it's just another inner city ghetto school, which is tragic to hear. And I'll finish off with the bit that this article finishes off on. The tables that they looked at showed projected figures for St. George would create a town with an average income $30,000 higher than present-day Baton Rouge, while the unemployment rate would be halved. And according to the figures compiled by the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, the new town would have a majority white population, as opposed to Baton Rouge, which has a black majority, and the number of people receiving food stamps would also be more than halved.
That's quite the condemnation of Baton Rouge, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly,
wow.
It's certainly a condemnation of one half of Baton Rouge, sadly. But once again, if you want to have a functioning society, if you don't want to have to be holding like Atlas, the entire world on your shoulders, and just want to be able to live in a high trust society, and this is what they have to do for that, they absolutely should have the right. And I'm shocked, but very pleased that the Louisiana Supreme Court permitted this. Not that I think that they should have to permit it, but I think it's quite remarkable that they have done so, when they were obviously going to face a lot of accusations of racism. I don't know how politics, local politics works in Louisiana, but I know that this certainly wouldn't happen in very, very liberal states of America. So I think it's very impressive that this has happened in the first place. And I wish the residents of St. George best luck. And I hope that Baton Rouge can turn itself around, because just because of I poke fun and I'm very critical of the culture that develops in these majority black neighborhoods and populations, doesn't mean I don't think that there aren't good people living there who deserve a high quality of life themselves. Hopefully the rest of Baton Rouge can turn itself around, because at the end of the day, I wish nobody any ill will.
Hear, hear.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as Common Sense Crusade with Calvin Robinson. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at LotusEaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.